Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy John, the Date Dr. Clark, and I want to go over some ways that can really improve our communication, not just in a friendship, not just in a relationship, but most importantly in a marriage. Sit each other down and have a discussion. It doesn't have to be like a parent-teacher conference. It doesn't have to be like a principal to a student or a principal to a parent. I want you all to sit each other down. I want you all to try something different. Think about what it is that I'm preaching to you. Try something different. Instead of having a sit down conversation in the kitchen, instead of having it in your living room, instead of having it in your bedroom, go outside for a walk and have a sit down conversation outside on the porch, or have a sit down conversation outside in the park. And as you all are sit down, I want you all to go over some ground rules. Not ground rules as in parent teacher conference, not ground rules as in, police to a criminal or a judge to an attorney, but ground rules as in lover to a lover, as in friend to friend, as in what we can expect in order to better our communication. What are some ground rules that we're going to try best not to do? So that's yelling at each other, that's screaming at each other, that's trying our best to have a conversation knowing that we're both at our peak, trying our best to have a conversation knowing that we're both at a 10. Because when we're at a 10, we're no longer listening to each other. We're now saying things that are hurtful and hateful. We're now doing the tit for tat spirit thing. We're now trying to compare and contrast what he did versus what she did. Y'all set some ground rules with each other. Acknowledge, places that we're not going to have these conversations at. Acknowledge who we're not going to have these conversations around. Acknowledge that we're going to try something different. Acknowledge that we're not going to do any yelling, screaming, biting, fussing, and fighting. Y'all, we have to respectfully set those ground rules. And again, not as a controlling standpoint, not as a dictator standpoint, but because we want to have a different outcome. The key is to improving the idea of better communication. The key is to communicate better than we had before. So why not switch up some of those cues? Why not switch up the location? Why not switch up the scenario? A couple other rules that we can add. We can try our best not to interrupt each other. We can try our best to listen differently. I know I'm not perfect. I know I struggle sometimes with those things. But at the end of the day, I want you all to fight just as hard, just as much as I'm going to fight to do better overall. I want you all to fight to also be intentional, to relearn how to listen to your significant other a heck of a lot better than you have. Relearn how not to interrupt them, because when you interrupt, you're not listening anymore. You're now going tooth and nail. You're now competing. You're now in court. You're now fighting. You're now having a confrontation, which means that you're now stepping away from the purpose of communication. So as a recap so far, and I'm going to continue, don't be afraid to switch up the location. Don't be afraid to set the ground rules. Don't be afraid to try something different, because ultimately, we want a different outcome. Ultimately, we want to be able to communicate a hell of a lot better versus it transitioning to another level of confrontation. Switch up the place, change up the rules, set some ground rules, switch up the location, be intentional, set some ground rules. That's what's pretty much what it's all about. Got a few other things, be intentional, try our best to do better. I've already kind of said, recap, change up the location, try those different things, because they're going to help us spiritually. It's going to help us mentally. It's going to help us mentally. It's going to help us emotionally overall. So we definitely have to do better when it's in reference to that. So another sidebar that I want to teach you all is that when you all are having a conversation, and it could potentially be heated, it can potentially be about a very personal topic, again, be intentional. Set those ground rules. Again, take time to both parties discuss the issue. So like, prime example, like if I'm having an issue with my wife and she doesn't have one with me, if I want to start a conversation, I'm going to change up the location. I'm going to redictate the vibe, because I don't want to come in hot. I don't want to come in heavy. I don't want to come in disrespectful. I want to come in respectful. So I'm going to change up the scenario. If I have an issue with her, I'm going to just kind of present that issue in one of the most respectful ways, but I'm going to start off with a loving atmosphere. So I just want to say, hey, babe, I love you. Don't have anything bad, nothing to share. Just kind of got a concern or two I wanted to kind of run by you. Hey, I kind of feel this way about this particular thing, and I wanted to see, what can we do about it overall, because I'm starting to feel in a certain way, and of course I care about you, I love you, and I kind of want us to be able to grow. So I want you to be mindful about what I just said in my issue. I told her that I love her. I made sure that the conversation is not going to go south. I switched up the location. I redictated the vibe. I made it where I wanted to have a better outcome. So I didn't put her in a hot situation. I was very respectful. I let her know what my issue was. And after I let her know my issue, I kind of thoroughly described some of my feelings about that. And then I kind of jumped to what can we do to kind of have a solution? What can we do ultimately to do better? That way, I'm not trying to fuss. I'm not trying to argue. But as I'm asking her that question, it's only right that she's human, that she, probably wants to inquire about, why I feel that particular way and possibly give her some examples. So y'all, a lot of times that question, a lot of times it can lead to arguments, but it leads to arguments when you don't have nothing to respond to. Because when you're, addressing an issue with a person, it's only right to give that person an example or a time as to why you felt that particular way. You never want to present an issue and you don't have anything to back it up, because that would defeat the purpose of having an issue with a person. So if you're going to present an issue with a person, be prepared, y'all, to thoroughly explain, to give them some examples. But don't give them examples as in, aha, as in I'm telling you so, as in, oh, you better agree that you did this, or I have it timestamped, or I have it recorded. Respectfully give them an example as in, hey, back on my birthday at this particular time, this is kind of how I felt, and these are some of the things that you may have done. But again, I'm not trying to point the finger, not trying to do tit for tat. Just kind of want to respectfully give you some of the examples, because based on that's just kind of what I saw and how I felt. That's why I just kind of, instead of us dwelling on it, I just more so want to figure out, what can we do to kind of do better? Because I know I'm not perfect, but I kind of want to have a heck of a lot, more things to talk about from a positive standpoint versus having issues or two. I mean, nobody's perfect. So you just got to be very mindful about that. You got to be very patient and very mindful about presenting different examples, because that person has the right to kind of understand what's going on. Now, on the receiving end, y'all, when a person is presenting an issue to you, be mindful. We may not always agree. We may sometimes disagree, but have a conversation with that person. Figure out why they may feel that way. If you feel as though that they're completely wrong, you got to be very mindful about how you suggest that. So what you do is you say, you know what, I don't quite feel as though that's what I was doing to you to possibly make you upset. But instead of us going on a powwow, instead of us having tit for tat, what can I do to not kind of give you that vibe? What can I do better in a reference to allowing you not to feel that particular way? So you're not necessarily just saying, hey, look, I did it. That's not what you're verbally saying. What you're saying is that, you know what, I apologize that, I made you feel such a way. That wasn't my intentions. That's not what I made out to do. And, I want to apologize in advance that I made you feel that way. And overall, I want to get to that solution just as bad as you do, so we don't have to constantly feel that way. All that is, y'all, is accountability, because obviously there was something that either we weren't aware that we were doing, that we may have done, that bothered our significant other. And all that's doing is showing that we're able to communicate. It's showing that we're able to kind of work together in reference to issues. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to accept accountability each and every time, because sometimes we're dishonest, sometimes we're very manipulative, sometimes we just like to make up issues, sometimes we like to have drama. I'm not to say that everybody's that particular way, but sometimes we do find ourselves being in situations where that could take the place. But my suggestion is more so an advice for someone that's a tad bit more honest and tad bit more conscious and tad bit more aware of trying to present issues and claims to their significant other. But what if you just truly believe on the receiving end that you did not do those particular things? So what you do is you respectfully inquire about different things. And it's not that you just pretty much deny it. It's not that you accuse them of being wrong. It's not that you deny their feelings. It's not that you don't hear their feelings. There's a respectful way to respectfully decline accepting accountability for different things. And the way it would sound is, you know what, babe, I see that I'm understanding how you feel. Because I respect you, because I love you, I do respectfully disagree that those were my actions. Of course, they were not my intent, which doesn't mean that I wasn't wrong for making you feel such a way. That's not what I may have done. Those were not my intentions. That's actually nothing that I said. But I want to make sure that you know that we're definitely on the right page, on the same page, because obviously my actions made you feel a particular way. And Lord knows that I don't want to go back to that. Lord knows I don't want to continue for you to feel that particular way, because I want us to be able to grow. So, let's talk about, what happened. Let's talk about maybe some things that I may not been as mindful of, and figure out what we can do better on in the future. So that's just another way of saying, hey, I didn't do what you're claiming that I did. I don't really feel too comfortable accepting accountability for it, but I'm not going to shy away. What I am going to do is I'm going to figure out how we can get to the bottom of it. I want to help us be able to reprocess what took place. And those are some of the things I want to do. All it is, y'all, is called dialogue. It's not manipulation. It's not moving away from it. All it is having a civilized conversation that we can agree to disagree. That's really all it is. Because a lot of times when we deny that we've done something, we put our guard up. We put our defense mechanism up. And I just kind of showed you all a particular way of respectfully declining, respectfully denying what we may possibly be accused of, but still keeping it cordial, still keeping it humbling as possible. So at the end of the day, y'all, I want you all to kind of take a recap and rehash some of the things that we kind of talked about. Learning the different ways to try to communicate, learning the purpose, being intentional, switching up the location, learning how to dictate the vibe. Dictate the vibe is just figuring out that you're not going to come in hot. You're not going to come in hostile. You're going to come in respectful. Being able to switch up the scenario, being able to set the ground rules, being able to have a plan and have a decision that you all are going to get down to the bottom line of what the issue is. Presenting the issue, allowing that person to hear what you have to say, being able to listen to each other, being able to refrain from interrupting each other, being able to, get to the solution, being able to problem solve, being able to do tit for tat, because those things don't work. Learning the difference between having a conversation versus having a confrontation. I'm going to say it again. Knowing the difference, being able to have a conversation versus having a confrontation. Those that are having a conversation are having dialogue, they're problem solving, they're getting down to the nitty gritty. Those that are having a confrontation are not problem solving, they're creating problems, they're not getting down to the nitty gritty, they're stabbing each other, they're doing tit for tat. They're not trying to resolve anything. They're focused on winning in addition to losing. Someone has to win and someone has to lose. Those are some of the things that those that are in a confrontation are being incredibly mindful of. So with that being said, y'all, I appreciate you all tuning in. I hope you were able to take a plethora of different things from my video. Learning better ways to communicate with each other. Be intentional. Y'all, we got to do better overall. Feel free to like the video. Feel free to share this video. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Of course, you just go to the search bar on your YouTube, type in The Date Doctor, THE space DATEDOCTA. Look me up. I look exactly the same that you would see on my YouTube page. Nothing more, nothing less. I appreciate you all. If you get a little time in your spare time, look me up on my website, www.thedatedoctor.com. All right, y'all be safe out there. Share.